Test 2 1. Test 2 2. Test 2 2. We got an iPad, low battery here, buddy.
What's up? It's 10:12, and I'm gonna call. We have the quorum, so we're gonna call the meeting to order. I don't believe we have any citizen, so we're gonna move on to the next section, which is the approval of the minutes for the Planning and the Finance Committee from the last month.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry if I had to ask, any correction, anything like that? If none, any opposed? None, motion pass. And at this time, I'm going to go ahead and chair the Planning Committee. Chairman Tran has some, he's not feeling well this morning, so I'll take care of his.
Yeah, I'll just bounce back.
It's a yin-yang. Mr. Adam,
Good morning, everyone.
good morning, how are you?
I'm fine. How's everyone doing this morning? Good. I know it's a little chilly. I've already texted my folks about that, so get them on that.
We're
Very
ready to
quickly.
approve non-bidding for the space heater if you want to put a few in.
We need a new boiler, so I just thought I'd come to see you. So item A is we are requesting release of the RFP for plan review and inspection services. This is to augment our contractors. City of Fort Worth licenses to third-party folks to provide plan review and inspection services as an addition to their force of inspectors. This will increase the speed of our schedule for the contractors as the inspectors in the city tend to have either a 5 to 10 day window to come and inspect, and these will be on our beck and call, which means we won't lose days in construction, which has dollar and schedule implications. So that is the request we have today.
Any question for Adam? Is this for the bond or is it for the regular operator?
Bond only.
Okay.
If no question, I entertain motion for approval.
Move approval.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous pass. Item B, please.
Okay, so the next four are for recommendations for RFQs. The first one is for site acoustics and vibration. Very limited field of folks who do this, and we had two respondents, EEA Consulting and Solace O'Brien. EEA received a score of 81 compared to 70 for Solace O'Brien. And in fact, EEA had the exact knowledge base that we were looking for. They have in fact designed vibration acoustic consulting for cogen plants as well as hospitals next to railroad tracks. So they were an ideal fit for us.
Could you explain really briefly for those that are not familiar with the acoustic and
So there's
vibration?
harmonics that come off the railroad trains, the trains that go down the tracks. There's also vibration that comes from the engines within the cogen plant. Those transmit through the ground, and so we have to isolate the buildings from the vibration so it doesn't disturb the patients, or more importantly, the instruments and the ORs, et cetera, and the MRIs. So that's why we need this consultant to make sure that we design our structures, especially our foundations, so to mitigate that vibration that's coming through.
Adam,
Yes, sir.
when you have only two bidders like that, or submissions, do you question that and say why? Or do you just accept we only get those two?
It depends on the field, and in this field, there are very limited few people that are vibration acoustics, and these folks in the area, they're the two in the area, in the DFW area. Nobody outside the area decided to submit for this, but since we had local presence, we felt it was appropriate to move forward. You'll see in later ones, we have more responses, and they're specifically when we get to the A&E for the hospital, we had 4 responses. There's some interest in that as well as why other architecture firms didn't, and that has to do with what's going on in the community, meaning the amount of construction. So it just depends on the varying fields that we're getting.
any more question? If not, entertain a motion for approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion pass. Item C, please.
Item C is for landscape architecture consulting. We had 3 exceptional proposals from Mesa, who's out of Dallas, Dunaway out of Fort Worth, and TMP out of Fort Worth. You may recall TMP is our enterprise consultant that was previously selected for civil. In this case, Dunaway received the high score. They're out of Fort Worth. They're equally exceptional. They had a score of 89 to the second of 76. And the committee's recommendation is the acceptance of Dunaway. This does not move forward to the commissioners as it's an enterprise consultant.
Have they done business with us before?
Excuse me?
Have they done business with us before?
Significant.
Significant.
All of them have.
Okay. All right. Any question? If not, entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second. By Reverend Emerson. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Any opposed? None. Motion pass. Item D, please.
Item D is for transition, activation, and move services. This is, again, migrating folks from building to building as we bring our buildings online. We only had 2 respondents. One of them was from Pennsylvania. The other was from the DFW area. So that does speak to our reach for respondents. And in this case, the respondent from DFW was the folks that we went with. The local presence is significant for move and activation. They do need to be local for that. And they were outpaced the second one by a score of 89 to 80. And we recommend Covalis, and they're out of DFW. So.
And they've done the move of major
Yes,
hospital before.
they're also working with us on our medical equipment planning, and they are doing an exceptional job.
Any questions? Yes.
Yeah, one question. The firm that you want to make the award to, you said they had an 89,
Yes, sir.
and the other company had
80.
80, okay. So if they came back and raised the question, can we justify, well, let me back up. Did we give points because they were local?
No, we did not.
Okay.
That is not under consideration.
I asked that because when you said, well, one was out of town, one was local, you know, if someone wanted to argue that, hey, we didn't get the points because we were not from the local area.
Understood. So we think about it, we talk about it. Of course, we're going to discuss it in the evaluation, but that is not what the scoring basis is on. It's specifically on statement of qualifications, the project personnel, the project approach, and the relevant project experience.
Okay. So then my suggestion is that is not something that maybe we want to say, local and non-local, just.
Yes, sir.
Any more question?
Just on that point, I mean, I've been told we can't favor local. Is that your point? I got you. Why is that, by the way? Why can't we favor local vendors?
There is an AG opinion on it, so we want to get into legalities out.
Should we just ignore it? I'm kidding.
I may entertain motion for approval, please.
Move approval.
Second by Reverend. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion pass. Item E, please.
Item E is for the award of the RFQ services for design services for the main campus hospital replacement. We had 4 respondents for this. A couple of the firms were joint ventures. A couple of firms that we expected to respond did not, as they are occupied with our friends down the street with UT Southwestern and Children's with their large bond program as well. So we had 4 respondents, all very strong firms, and we are recommending 2 firms as the norm. This does go to the commissioners for review. The first firm is a joint venture, Page and Hoffer Welker, and the second one is Beck. Page and Hoffer Welker had a score of 91. Beck had a score of 88.
Pretty close.
Yes, sir.
Any question? No question. Entertain motion to approve. Oh, Tim.
I know this is an RFQ. Any consideration that we might end up with price on this?
No, sir, we're not allowed to do that.
Yeah.
Not at this stage, right?
Not at this stage. That's negotiated after selection.
Any other question? If not, may I have a motion for approval?
Sorry, one more. Sorry. With them being that close, any concern there about comparison between the two, abilities between the two? Something that maybe just isn't caught in the scoring rubric at all?
I think it's more we compare the two, well, we compare all four, but we also judge them on their proposal. And these two, I think, would be, based on their proposal, the committee felt that we could work with either one of them.
With either one, okay.
Adam, is the vote to send both forward to the court or
Yes,
just
it
to
is.
send one?
Both.
Okay.
In this case. And then the court will interview those two, and that's been the process. so
And then the
far.
court selects?
Correct.
They select based on our recommendation to them.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Question? May I- Second. All in favor? Motion passed. Anything else, Adam?
No, sir, I'll see you during contracts.
Thank you, sir. We're going to move on to the finance section. And welcome, Ms. CFO.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I've got a couple of items on my CFO report. One I'm going to defer until my finance presentation. I do have the projected 12 months for 2023, where I think we're going to end up this year. The other one is we are just about wrapped up with our single audit, which is an audit required by our award of federal grants, and that's going to be posted on your portal. You will receive an email when that's done, but it's likely going to be prior to the next finance committee. So I will give you a heads up on that. In the prior years, we've had a very strong reports with no findings. So if I can move on to financials for March. March was a very strong month. I think the only significant difference between kind of the trend for the prior 5 months is we did have an uptick on the outpatient activity, which you'll see here in a few slides, but we do continue to experience higher than anticipated admissions. There's a couple of things driving that. Other than just patient volume, we do have our observation documentation and how those patients are classified. So that probably accounts for anywhere from a quarter to a third of that increase. But overall, we have seen an increase in patients throughout this year. Our case mix, the complexity of the patients that we're seeing has remained pretty constant this year, as well as our length of stay. So the outpatient slide deck is really kind of the unusual part of this month. We've been working very hard on the right side of the page with our primary care visits and opening up some schedules. We have hired a couple of providers that have allowed us to see more patients, as well as in the specialty care clinic visits below. Our emergency department continues to be busy. We have also been working on throughput efforts there. And so we were able to get additional patients seen for March. Even though February and March, it looks like a pretty large increase. Remember, we've got about 3 extra days in February or in March versus February. So these graphs always look kind of strange to me, but just to keep that in mind. And then urgent care, we have been kind of consistent in those volumes for the entire fiscal year. I think what we're seeing here is really kind of a return to pre-2020 volume. A lot of our volumes have started to slowly tick up over the last 2 to 3 years. Surgery continues to show improvement as far, again, with throughput efforts. We have a couple of new surgeons that have come on this year, and you can see that our inpatient surgeries continue to trend up in the dark blue line. And our outpatient surgeries have been very consistent for the last 6 months. Behavioral health, you can see here, we did have an uptick in those clinic visits this month. Again, you do have a couple of extra working days accounted for in there. The emergency visits continue to track right on budget. And when you look at the bottom right graph, that outside medical services, we've done a really excellent job, again, in the throughput on the inpatient side and not having to send our patients out and managing those days when they are there.
I have a quick question for you regarding to length of stay going up, but the case mix is trending down. Is there a challenge with transition?
I don't think so. That was expected as we started to correctly code those that were accounted for as observation historically versus an inpatient today. That overall average, those are less acute patients that are moving more to inpatient. So we did expect that overall average CMI to decrease based on the volumes that we're seeing transition. It's a good question. Over on a claim, our provider statistics are strong. Again, March, having a few extra days, we were able to get some extra visits and CPT codes billed. Year to date, we're running about 4% above projection. And it does go back to some of the incentive plans that have been put into place. And the financial metrics, these are hospital-focused financial metrics. You can see that our payer mix up on the top left has not changed significantly. I will point out on that second to left bar, kind of the darker bluish purple at the top represents our commercial mix. And we have seen an uptick in that year to date. Most of that is from our new Cigna plan that got approved. So that's had some positive results for both the claim and the medical center. So from an income statement perspective, we ended the month at we ended the month at 15.5 million. Again, from the top down, we did have tremendous volume this month compared to our budget. That also impacts our salary. So you see a bigger net patient service revenue, but you're also seeing an overage in our salaries. To date, we do have, when you flex our budget and account for all that additional inpatient and outpatient volume, our salaries are actually favorable to budget. We do staff in most of our patient areas based on per patient day or per clinic visit. The unbudgeted item that we've been accruing under the supplemental Medicaid funding is for the HARP program. I'm accruing that to be at about $30 million this year. It was approved late last year after this budget was submitted for approval. And we do have some savings going on in some of our year-to-date expenses, and we'll talk about those on the next slide. But year-to-date, this puts us at about $56 million for the 6 months. Remember, our year starts on October 1st. So on on this projected income statement, my first column is just kind of pulling forward that 56 million for the first 6 months so you can have some perspective. And as we don't just times 2 on this and say, well, that's where we're going to be. There's a lot of effort that we put in trying to go through and see what we expect to spend that we may be under for the first 6 months and look at projects and expenses that may not have been budgeted for in the last 6 months. So I'm just going to say it's kind of like budget. The law of averages do play out here. We are dealing with $1.5 billion worth of expenses and revenues. However, this is not final. So I'll be bringing this projection back to you next quarter. That way we'll have 9 months of actual and the 3 months of estimated remaining activity. So this is always going to be a work in process, right, until we get up to our budget finalization, because the projected number is where we start from. If you kind of look, I'm just going to explain, we are projecting to be about 69 million over our projected budget. 2/3 of that is the HARP program that I talked about on the last slide. I am accruing about $30 million. That will not be the final amount paid. I think that is a conservative amount. I feel very confident about the 30 million. It could be more. We were supposed to find out from HHSC last Friday, and that announcement has been delayed. But we will get that answer, and as soon as we have the final number, we'll adjust that accrual and show that on a monthly basis. But that is an estimate right now, and it's a big one. The other pickups are, again, the stronger patient volumes. We have about $5 million in that net patient service revenue that we're receiving from Medicare that we did not budget for a UC payment. They pay it per claim, and again, that amount was not announced until at the very end of last year after our budget was approved. If you look at the retail pharmacy, that has been very strong revenue throughout this year. About $2.5 million of that $8.1 million is profit that falls to that bottom line and accounts for that. So those are our big revenue pickups from budget. And then when you look at our operational expenses, mainly in the other operating expense, we expect to have about 3.4 million of savings. Some of that is utilities, some of that is our insurance policies that were voted and approved by our board at the beginning of the year. So those are permanent, and you can see those will stay unspent. This also is our consolidated view. So if our physician network is performing better than their original budget, so that is also included in that 46 million. Is there any questions about the numbers that are happening here? I do also want to mention, as we look at this master facility plan, it's really a 10-year view. That tower, even though we'll start the construction, you guys approved the design of it just a few minutes ago. But as we start the construction, we probably will not take occupancy of that tower for 8 to 10 years from now. If you look at the plan and you look at how things are scheduled currently. So when I look at a 10-year plan, I'm trying to make sure that, number one, we can pay for the 1.5 billion bricks and mortar, that we can maintain a healthy days cash on hand of 220 to 250 days. and also maintain a healthy operating margin of somewhere between 2 and 3% after all these projects are open. We do have debt service that we'll have to pay. We talked a little bit about the Fit for Growth activity last month. And so as we look at this, that extra money that's being provided will go into our earmarked cash for this construction. And it's very important that we realize, even though we have access to another $350 million worth of debt, which we just issued $450 million, so the $350 is still there. That creates a very large burden for the next 30 years for JPS as we move forward. So the more cash we can generate today, it will help us avoid debt in the next 4 years.
Understand what you're saying. Part of your projection is looking at monies that you can accrue that in the long run we will not need to do that remainder 300 and something. We will not have to use all of it. We might, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
If we're lucky enough that the next 2 to 3 years end up the way this year ends up. There's always a lot of questions. There's a lot of risks moving forward with supplemental funding, with any level of revenue that we've seen. And then if you look back on expenses, the salary escalations for the providers as well as just nursing staff and patient-facing staff and support staff have increased 20 to 25% in a very short period of time. And that's over half of our expenses, salaries and benefits. So we're very sensitive to any kind of market change there. And this plan lives and breathes. It is not on a shelf somewhere. As we get new information, we update it, and we have learn to, I'm very focused on the 10 years. I'm not focused on next year's budget, and I am focused on next year's budget. I want you to think, everybody behind me is going, woo, we're not gonna, Sharon's not paying any attention. But I think what we're doing as a group, all the executives that are behind me and the ones that are not, we're educating.
Right.
We're educating at this executive level so they can educate at the director level. And this is a 10-year journey. It's not about next year's budget.
Okay.
Again, we will keep you posted on the projection as we get through a few more months. But there will be a time, I think it's in year 7 and 8, where we actually dip below what my goal for days cash on hand would be, as well as the operating margin. Now, we come back out of that, but we will be right on the edge. And those credit ratings that we work really hard to maintain are important and could actually increase our cost if we don't maintain those. So.
Okay. Well, thank you. And thank you for providing that. That helps me understand why you keep pinching those pennies, because we have to really drag you. But thank you. It makes sense.
We're not saving for a rainy day. This is happening. And we've got to focus on that end result. We are building these buildings. They are coming online. This is not conceptual at this point.
It's not just turn the building on and it's there.
See what happens?
You got to transition the people, train them, transform the
I
hospital.
remember what happened at Parkland when they turned theirs on. Yeah.
Can be-
So we do not want to get in that situation.
not.
Okay.
Be painful.
Yeah.
And we
Thank
have
you.
to look at training our own staff to transition to use the new technology, new building and all that stuff also as well. Then you can benefit from it.
I want to thank Sharon. I mean, Sharon and I really do have kind of tense conversations behind closed doors because I'm always looking at the patient and saying, hey, listen, we've got to maintain patient quality and safety in the organization. And she's always saying, we've got to make sure we're financially secure. So they're not independent of each other. And I think together we really do make it work for JPS. So I want to thank Sharon for helping the organization.
It's the old no money, no mission type thing. So we have to be very careful how we do that. And we probably will come back maybe 3 months from now to take a look at it before the budget anyway, to calibrate them.
We did expense about 3.5 million of bond issuance costs this month, as well as accrue a couple of days of interest expense. So you'll start to see that come through as well on a monthly basis. Any other questions that I can answer on the projection or for March performance?
I don't think so. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move to the next section.
I think we need approval on the unaudited
Oh.
financials.
We do? Okay. May I have a motion?
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed.
Thank you.
Thanks for reminding me.
I caught Lonnie's eye over there too, so. I am going to present item B today. This is a renewal of our linen purchases. It continues to be through Vizient, but we are suggesting that we are moving to the Medline textile contract. We were on the standard textile contract. This change saves us about $38,000 annually. It is a $382,000 expense, estimated over 3 years at about $1.1 million.
Any question on this one? If not, entertain a motion for approval.
Move approval. I got to quit playing with my pad here and get back.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
get it?
Motion passed. Item C, welcome, Mr. McGrady.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For those board members that are new that I haven't had the opportunity to meet, I am the Vice President of Revenue Cycle. I like to describe that as taking the hard-earned patient care that we do and trying to translate it into dollars. We collect about $600 million from insurance companies and others across the Acclaim and Medical Center. So it's a challenge. I also have managed care contracting. You'll see a couple of those contracts today. The first item, C, this is a company called Data Search. It's a pre-collection service that's usually starts about day 60 after a patient is discharged from the hospital. We give them an opportunity to pay on their own, but then we use an outsourced company. It's just not cost effective for us to staff that service. And so we collect about $400 million in that pre-collection phase. So you can see the cost there for Data Search. $136,000 annually. There was 9 respondents to this RFP, and we considered cost, quality, as well as supplier diversity spend. Request your approval and answer any questions that you might have.
Any question, Tim?
Yeah, I have a question. Mainly, it's not about this particular item, apart from just the cost. Why is this, and it's probably for you, DT, why is this coming to us since it's 136 annually? Is it because in the aggregate, it's over $500,000?
I'd say it's
Total spend? Yeah. Good, my new guy questions.
That's a great
Thank
question.
you, thank you.
all right. And entertain motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion pass. Item D.
Item D is a company called Nationwide. It's also kind of a tandem to the other company. What we like to do is benchmark two companies against each other for performance. So we'll have two different vendors providing that service. One of the things that we were able to do with this particular vendor is pick up 25% participation in our diversity spend. In the two companies prior to these, we had none. So there, you can see the cost there, $179,000 annually. Nationwide does work with Parkland as well, so they know a lot about our patient population and the difficulties that they have, and so have a very good history with that. Any questions and requests approval on that as well?
But this is the second alpha.
It's the other half, yes, DT, that's correct.
After a period of time, you flip them
That's correct.
to make sure. Okay.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion pass. Item E, please.
All right, 7E is, I mentioned managed care earlier. That's something we deal with quite often here, dealing with insurance companies. This is simply a rebranding of Cigna. Cigna has rebranded their behavioral health service line as Evernorth. So it's a name change and it's a contract change, really. No reimbursement change. They did add a few access points across the network that weren't previously included, and would take your questions and request approval on this as well.
Is E and F, is that one for a claim, one for the hospital? Is that
That's correct. E is the acclaim group, and F is the hospital. They're the same rebranding of that Cigna group.
Can we take both of them at the same time? We're going to combine both of them at the same
Okay.
time. Mhm. Any question? If none, entertain motion for approval.
Move approval of E and F.
Second.
All in favor, signify aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Motion pass. Item G, please.
All right, item G is a company called Change Healthcare, and this is a payment integrity product that we're deploying for our MSR. If you don't know that term, medical services reimbursement and outside medical services. So we pay somewhere around $70 million for our connections members outside the network and also the acclaim group. So this product will allow us to use a cost containment strategy. It looks for things like double billing, upcoding, code errors, things that would not need to be paid. So it also will reduce some labor costs by having to deal with unnecessary appeals. We expect to save about $1.5 million in claims cost over the life of the contract. And then we do pay about 20 cents of that, and that's the way the agreement works. So questions on that as well as requesting an approval.
Just curiosity, do they look for bundle also as well?
Bundle, yes, bundling and unbundling. Correct.
Okay. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, guys.
Any opposed? None. Motion pass. Welcome back, Mr. Adam.
Do you like Groundhog Day?
Yeah.
So I am here today to present the extension of the contract for Vaughn for the PEC. This marks a significant milestone for us within the MFP. This is the full contract, the first full contract we have for construction services for one of our projects. So this is a CMAR contract, construction manager at risk. This is part of the intermediate guaranteed maximum price. By code, we have to bring this to you, and then we will come back to you one last time with a final guaranteed maximum price, which by code needs to be less than this number, meaning this code includes the contingency within the contractor's construction contract. Again, this is construction contract only, not total project costs, meaning medical equipment, fixtures, architecture fees. This is for $61 million. This is for the entirety of the PEC. And it does have a 7-day out clause, and this is for the total scope of services within the contract for the design that has been previously shown to the board.
Adam, I have a question. The work that's already being done, construction on the PEC, is that included in this, or is that a different contract?
That is included in this. It folds we do each IGMP within the government code. You have to fold those in with each relative IGMP that you modify.
So was there a preliminary contract already signed?
Yes, there is. There is.
And that's being amended?
Yes, sir. That is correct.
And we should have,
It's very different than what would be done in the private sector with the IGMP, which is just an amendment to a contract. The government code is very specific on how we handle intermediate GMPs in each stage that we add to, and then with a final GMP.
and this should include some warranty period also as well, right? So we see some decrease in maintenance?
Yes, that is built into the contract.
Okay.
That's in our existing standard form contract.
Okay. Any more questions? If not, entertain motion for approval. Second. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? None. Motion pass. Next one, please.
So the next one, I'll answer first why this is coming for you, because it is a lease, and that folds under real estate, and all lease and real estate agreements need to come before the board and the commissioners. This contract is for $4,600 annually, total project of cost of $23,000. This is for renting one of our parking lots to Tarrant County Public Health, 21 spaces over 5 years. It was tough negotiations, but we got there in the end. I wanted to head Tim off before he asked, because I knew he'd ask.
But we fund it and then we ask for some back?
In deeper detail, I'm happy to do that.
What's the longitude and latitude of these spots? Yeah.
About right out there behind that building.
Any more questions? If not, entertain motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion pass.
Promise not coming
that's a
back
huge-
again today.
That's a back-to-back huge contract.
Yeah.
Thanks, Adam.
Good morning.
My contract's a little bit bigger than 2,400, but not quite the PEC. I'm here to asking for your approval of a pricing and consignment agreement with Edwards Life Sciences. They provide our heart valves and supplies. They were selected through an RFP process. Annual cost, $893,000. Initial 3-year term with potential 2 one-year renewal options. And again, this will purchase and provide our heart valves for replacement valve surgery.
Any questions, since I don't know how to ask this question?
No, there's nothing to ask, okay.
You want one?
Well, as the surgeon was saying something, I would, okay. All right.
We have,
Move approval.
all in favor, signify aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion pass.
Thank you.
Ms. Parker. Welcome.
All right, good morning, everyone. Good morning. Hello. All right, for item K, I'm bringing forward consideration for your approval for a purchase agreement between Olympus and the hospital district. I'm here representing our ENT providers who are very specific and very thoughtful around the selection of these specific rhinolaryngoscopes. And this has an annual cost of $627,868, which is in our approved capital budget. And this provides the purchase, installation, training, first-year maintenance, and related software for Olympus for our ENT clinic. And this was awarded, we did actually go out for RFP, but this is actually on Vizient and was an incumbent vendor. And so definitely the preference of our physicians here speaking for this.
Okay. All right.
Any question? If none, entertain motion for approval.
Move approval.
All in favor, signify aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion pass. Next one, please.
All right. For item L, this is consider approval of mammography screening services agreement between Assured Imaging Women's Wellness Center and the district. And this is our mobile mammography program that has our coaches that go out to all of our different clinics to provide that screening service. This has an annual cost of up to $3,556,224 annually. And this is also included in our approved operational budget. This is initial, the total cost over a possible 5-year term is about that $17 million. And this is a 1-year term with potential for 1-year renewal options. And this just does provide the 3D mobile screening services at our multiple clinic locations through RFQ process. This was awarded to Assured, which is our incumbent vendor, and it presented the lowest cost to our network.
Does it have the same resolution as the fixed unit?
Yes, yes, it does, yes. And actually, we have an interface directly with Assured for orders and results with our provider team.
And then they can upload to the PACS system and everything else was. Okay.
And I took someone to get a mammogram, and it's set up real neat. You walk in there, welcome you, and get your name, and then it was quick. They was apt, got their mammogram. The service was really, I was impressed, So,
Wonderful.
thank you. And it's really helpful because it goes to the clinics, and the patient can just go there and get their mammogram, and they're timely, and it's really, I was impressed with that service. Okay.
Would you like to make a motion?
I will make a motion to approve. Thank you.
Second. All in favor, signify aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion pass. Next one, please.
All right. Item M is consider approval of purchase agreement between Morrison-Dixon and the district. Morrison-Dixon is our wholesaler for pharmaceutical products to the district. And this is an annual cost of $50,420,407, which is approved in our operational budget. And then this is a initial 3-year term with potential 2 1-year renewal options for this contract. We did go out for RFP for this process, invited many vendors to come to the table. We had 2 respondents, Morris-Dixon and Marisource Bergen. This was presented to Morrison-Dixon. Our incumbent vendor presented the larger cost of goods discount to the organization. And of course, they provide some exceptional performance. Any questions on the Morrison-Dixon contract?
Just a quick question around, is there rebates that included in this contract? Or?
So no rebates in this program. I did bring behind me, you can see over my left shoulder, I brought Nicole Shoquist, who is our pharmacist in charge and does a wonderful job. So I can allow her to speak to that. But from a discount perspective, Morrison-Dixon presented the best discount to the network. But no rebates in this.
Are they using the AW something? I forgot the name. It's been a while.
We do have, and actually part of our Fit for Growth is MedRep, which is a program to help us to achieve some of those rebates. But Nicole, is there anything I missed on that?
So we are still eligible for rebates through the PBM program, separate from the wholesaler agreement. So the district does still see that in the employee health plan.
Okay, good. Thank you.
I have 2 questions. This says this is the primary pharmaceutical vendor. What percentage of the total pharmaceutical products dispensed by JPS does this represent?
We need to maintain a 93% contract compliance through Morrison-Dixon, and we hit that, have hit that every year. We're generally around 94 to 95% through Morrison-Dixon.
And then the second question may be for DT or Dorothy. For this contract and the previous one, there's renewal options. Do the renewals come before the committee and the board each year, or do we only approve the initial contract and then the renewals are handled by staff?
So when they present a total dollar value of the contract that includes the renewal amount, that's what they're asking for approval on, so that we wouldn't represent those renewal requests.
I believe when you have renewal, you have the option to opt out.
Right.
But,
Yes.
Correct.
So that's for our protection.
But I guess what Blake is asking is, who's exercising that option?
I think the CEO should be the one exercising it.
I mean, I ultimately sign off on it. But it is the business unit that understands that RFP is coming to an end. It does give us some ability to extend for a number of reasons so that we can work through an RFP, or that we feel, I mean, we're always evaluating kind of the costs like every year around that to see whether it still is our best contract that we have at the time. But it's usually at the business unit, but ultimately signed off. If we are having, I hear what you're asking. If we are having concerns about one of our vendor, it does give us that option, because you will hear me say, when does this contract end? I need to know when this contract ends. And I know it drives everyone crazy, but it's for that reason, right? I want to make sure that we don't move forward with extending a contract because we've not had good service with it. So many times that we do push that one back into that RFP at the end of that first end of the contract and not extend it, so.
So if, Nicole, if we don't hit the 93%, then the price change, or we have guaranteed certain pricing?
Yeah, so the cost of goods discount would be reduced if we don't achieve the contract compliance rate for 2 quarters.
Oh, I see. And usually these contracts takes a long time to negotiate, so you probably will have to have at least a year in advance to be able to post and get RFP and all that stuff also as well.
We did, yes.
So with these renewal options, initial 3-year term and 2 1-year renewals, do those require an affirmative decision by a staff member to renew, or is it an automatic renewal for a year? Years 4 and 5, does someone have to sign off on that for JPS?
There's like a notification period with the vendor that alerts that we're going to be renewing, so. Right, I mean, Daphne,
I mean,
you can
staff
help with that.
staff
Yes.
probably will keep track of the renewal date ahead of time, because usually you have to give 60 days or 90
Yeah, they
days
do.
ahead of
That's sent
time.
out to
That's
the
great.
VP that this is coming to an end. And so they, at that point, make that decision as to whether they're going to go after RFP or extend that contract, just depending on what's going on. But Daphne, you can.
Yeah, they may have answered your question, but typically there's language in there that says we can give notice prior to the end of the term of non-renewal. So it wouldn't auto-renew unless we allow that to happen.
And I think part of that is that you have your quality committee that is looking at services, and that's a report that the quality committee will look at the service and what's being done to make sure that clinically and all of that's working. If that's not working, then they would be bringing that back and letting us know, and that's when they would be telling us that they're going out to bid. So it's another review process too. They don't just do stuff. There's a committee that will be looking at services. Pharmacy have to make sure that those vendors are meeting their compliance. That's reported up through quality.
And I'm sure each contract's different, but in the case of the pharmacy contract, does a renewal require an affirmative renewal decision, an action by JPS, or does it automatically renew if we don't exercise our right not to renew?
It should be automatic renew unless there's intention to get out.
We do get, as the operational business owner, I get a notification within our electronic system that is for management of contracts that this is coming up for renewal, or the different stages of that. And to Mr. Bowe's point is we're constantly looking at those quality metrics that are assigned from KPIs around these contracts to measure the effectiveness of that contract and whether it, and in conversation with senior leadership that we need to go out for something else. But hopefully that helps around the notification piece.
It's a lot of complex stuff behind the scene, because when you deal with that, you have to have inventory. You have to have inventory control, and then you have to keep track. They have to keep track of expiration date to move things around, restocking, and then sometime during COVID, they have to know to buy things in advance because we won't have access to certain supply. So, and then after that, then you still have the PBM on the other side, looking at dispensing and all sort of things behind it too. So very, very complex stuff that. One thing the hospital runs very well, most hospitals run well, is the pharmacy side. Otherwise, you can't treat patient and run operation and operating room and all that stuff.
We don't,
Is there a concern or anything around renewal?
I mean, given the size of this particular contract, but any contract, if we have a renewal options, I mean, as long as we're on top of things and aren't forgetting, about a deadline, then an automatic renewal isn't a problem. You can always submit a notice of non-renewal. But if the contract's written to require a written renewal notice to the other part, to the counterparty, then if you're asleep at the wheel, it won't renew. So it just depends on how well you police your contract expiration dates. But it can be written so that it requires an affirmative renewal, or it terminates, or it requires a termination notice, or it automatically renews. You can go from either direction. It doesn't matter as long as we're on top of our renewal dates and we don't let these renewal deadlines pass.
yeah, I mean, it is set up, and Daphne probably can elaborate on this, but it's set up to keep operations going, that there is not an interruption in operations. To your point, Blake, what we don't want is that we come in and we haven't renewed our contract to continue providing medications for our patients because the way the contract is set up.
Correct.
So there's a lot of notification that goes out. I do see that it's written favorably for us in case that service has not been a good service, to be able to start that RFP process, because that really, you do have to back into that. It takes, you can see with even our contracts for our buildings and stuff like that, but it does take time to back in. If you've got a large service such as Maxor or anyone else that's providing those services for you, you've even got to have lead time in order to bring in new individuals now to kind of sit in and again keep operations going. So all of that is taken into account. The system does allow for the business leader, which is the VP over that area, to receive those notifications. And I would share with you that I see a lot of those kind of contracts that are starting to come to an end, and I move those forward to the VP to review. So it is set up in order to keep operations going.
If there's any interruption with service, I think we can have the ability to buy from secondary supplier and keep the primary running and then swap it and all that stuff so behind the scene. I would hate to change. I think that require a policy change, and then it's going to be an administrative nightmare for legal and staff also as well. I personally don't favor renewal to be controlled by. It should be controlled by the unit's owner with competent people that we hire in place, because otherwise we bog down the system. So.
And if there is a concern about it just rolling on automatically, there is also typically provisions in there of termination with some advance notice as well. So we'd still have the ability to terminate it.
My only other question is just on cost. I mean, I know we received responses from the two major players, and this is probably one area where we are looking at apples to apples between the RFP responses that we received. I saw in some of the notes that the contract was awarded based on a larger cost of goods discount and exceptional performance. Are we confident as well that this is actually going to be cheaper in the long run as well?
Yeah, so we went, and Nicole can speak to this. I will tell you, of this contract, a lengthy process of financial reviews of those respondents to make sure on the different discounts and how everything was, in order to get it apples to apples, which, we've got the comparison here of all of that to make sure it was the best cost of the network, because we recognized the value of this contract and the expense to the organization for sure.
So the answer is yes?
Yes, sorry. Short and sweet, yes.
Any way people can play with pricing.
Yeah, right.
Especially through packaging.
Yeah.
You can buy and then we package them to a smaller quantity and all that stuff. So they're very versed on that. And sometimes they package a lot more and then you throw away too, for some instance. So I
And I think from the offering, right, for the wholesaler to make sure that it offered, and so our physicians were involved in this committee review for the RFQ to make sure we have all of the drugs that we need to take care of these patients, and that wholesaler is able to, provide that, procure that for us.
All right. May I entertain motion for approval?
Second.
All in favor, signify aye. Any opposed? Motion pass. Thanks, Nicole, and thanks, Joy. Hello, Ms. Bond. How are you?
Good morning, members of the Finance Committee. Happy Thursday. I'm here today to ask for your consideration for approval of, number one, an exemption to bid, and number two, this contract would be for on-site correctional health dialysis services agreement between RPNT Acute Services Incorporated and the Tarrant County Hospital District. The cost is $229,685 annually with a 4% market increase each year. The total cost of the three-year contract would be $716,983, and this is included in our operational budget. They provide on-site dialysis treatment for incarcerated patients at the Tarrant County Jail. Dialysis is an essential service that's been provided at the jail for the past 7 years. JPS does not provide ambulatory dialysis services, and one of the challenges as well is there's a limited number of patients that can be sent out from the jail for healthcare services on a daily basis also. We contacted numerous dialysis providers in order to see who could come and do dialysis in the jail. We contacted DaVita, U.S. Renal Care, Odalair, Fresenius, and Tarrant Dialysis Services, and none of them were willing to come into the jail to provide services. This does align with our district's strategic plan to provide better access to care and continuity of care for incarcerated patients by providing dialysis services at the jail. It does carry a 90-day out clause. I will tell you that in contracts like these, you do a cap typically for annual costs. It's difficult for us to be able to say how many dialysis patients we're going to have each year in the jail because we don't know what we're getting in the jail. So what we did was we took the previous 3 years of annual inmates that received dialysis and came up with a median of those and for our next 3-year contract. And in the previous 3-year contract, we did not spend all of those dollars. We spent $734,000, and we had a positive variance of money not spent of about $168,000. And so again, I'm asking for your approval for exemption to bid and also for the dialysis contract.
Any question? Blake?
Yeah, just a comment that as we get into the budget season, this is an example of an expense that JPS bears that arguably belongs to the county.
Correct.
So we'll see other items. This one is easy to see. It's dialysis in the jail, which it's obviously more efficient to provide it there than to bring everybody over here. But just wanted to make that point.
Yes, sir.
We don't review non-exemption to bid anymore. I'm just kidding.
But maybe.
Where do you live again?
Okay. May I
move
a motion?
I do have a question about the exemption. Maybe it's more of a comment. I know we're exempting because it's professional services, but also it sounds like because nobody else was interested.
Yes, sir. Nobody else was willing to do it.
Sole source.
Dorothy's still, she's got a nursing license too.
I can't do dialysis.
So by default, it is a sole source.
Yep, I got it.
Quality care measures.
Yes.
All the quality care measures.
Right. I think so.
They are.
Yes.
May I entertain motion for approval?
Approval of the exemption to bid and for the on-site correctional health services, health dialysis service agreement.
Second.
All in favor, signify aye.
Aye.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. I think that's conclude our meeting for planning and finance, and we don't have anything in close, right? May I entertain the motion for adjourn? We adjourn at 11:16. Thank you, everybody.